hops and Amarillo hops, Columbus too, which are just like the core of Pacific Northwest brewing. So it's got kind of more tropical fruit, a little bit of like mango, guava, a lot of citrus, which are not typically seen in ESBs at all.
No. You'd expect that to be more East Kent Goldings, Fuggles, cedary, woody, spicy, herbal.
Yeah, totally herbaceous. Yeah, Fuggles is the complete opposite of Mosaic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah, so I love it. It's I think it's personally like 3 or 4 guys who are the owners and operators of Driftwood. This is the favorite beer they make because it just brings together the maltiness of English beers and that hoppiness that they want.
And it's been a core beer at least as long as it's been in Alberta. I can remember this being like my care packages from Vancouver as well. So this has been around, if not from like day one, from very early, it seems.
It is day one. I'm not sure if it was the first like beer they ever like released, but it was like definitely one of the first things that they had on tap in places. And like it's evolved a little bit because it was originally a seasonal, because Mosaic hops were really hard to find about 10 years ago. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, they switched it to a core year-round offering because they were able to secure enough Mosaic hops to really ride it all year. So, and I should mention too, the reason it's kind of an odd name, a lot of people find like, what's Naughty Hildegard mean? And she was actually a nun who did a lot of early work in botany in hops. So she's kind of like the patron nun of brewing, Hildegard. So it's kind of just a bit of an homage to the history of beer.
I really dig it. Now, you did kind of open the door here. I mean, we now think of Driftwood as being this reference Western Canadian brewery, but obviously they haven't always been that. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about some of the history of Driftwood, where they got started back in 08 and how we kind of got from there to here?
Yeah, so they started in 08 in like a tiny little facility just a few minutes outside downtown Victoria. And they're kind of, they've steadily grown into a bit of a regional brewery. We're seeing their beer in every province out to Ontario, I believe.
Oh wow, that's great.
And even a little bit gets down into Washington, I think. So, so yeah, in 2008 they opened their doors. I think the first keg they sold was in like September 2008. They were always just kind of in bomber bottle form for a long time, and then in 2018 they bought their own canning line and started bringing out these beautiful tall cans with their gorgeous labels, and grew so big and were selling so much Fat Tug that they actually moved facilities this past winter to what is now Vancouver Island's largest brew house.
Oh wow!
So massive facility. That was before that, it was their canning facility, and they were actually brewing beer at one facility and trucking it to this facility.
This seems like a terrible plan, but yeah, I can understand how things sometimes go that way. It's why we have an off-site storage facility on the absolute donkey's end of town here, so it makes no sense where it is, but you know, we needed a place that we could buy for fairly cheaply. Yeah,
and that's kind of what happened. The upside of them having 2 facilities was they got this beautiful tanker truck that, in their probably having too many beers one night, they decided to paint like a gigantic Fat Tug can. So you would see this Fat Tug rolling through Victoria.
Okay, that's brilliant, actually. I love that.
A gigantic 1 million milliliter tanker truck.
Jesus. That rules.
That's a lot of beautiful beer.
That is a lot of beautiful beer. And Craig actually comes out with a question here. You've never seen Naughty Hildegard before. I've always liked Naughty Hildegard. I've carried it in the cans off and on. I've carried it in the bombers back when. I've always liked Naughty Hildegard, but for me at least, it's been a bit of a tougher sell. I mean, when you say Driftwood, everybody says, oh, well, Fat Tug. And Raised by Wolves used to be seasonal. This is fairly new. They also had their white bark wheat, which back in the bomber days, when we sold a lot of bombers, we sold a lot of white bark wheat.
Oh, yeah.
Is that in 4-packs? I didn't actually look.
It is, yeah. So these are all in 4-packs except for the original Gravity. is actually only in their mix pack,
Right.
the Swash Box, which
Yeah.
is like literally the hoppiest mixture in the history of beer.
Yep. Which I may have just taken apart to make the beer tastings for this
Yeah.
a little tiny bit, because I'm not going to turn down a gift horse at all. When somebody's like, "Oh, look at this super cool like pack of IPAs," okay, yes, let's do that. Spoiler warning: that's what we're doing next week too. Annex is doing a really cool thing.
The reason a lot of people have never heard of Naughty Hildegard is because I'd say twofold. Fat Tug always gets the limelight from this brewery, much to the chagrin of me because I love Naughty Hildegard. But more importantly, I think it doesn't get seen a lot just because it is an ESB, and that's a very polarizing and kind of confusing title for a lot of people. They don't really know what it is, and even then, if there is a traditional ESB drinker, they're
They're
not
going to see the
get
6.5% alcohol and be like, "Puff! How dare they?"
Yeah.
I don't actually care, but I was just going to give you a hard time because I am a little bit. I'm not even that person. I'm just a contrarian dick, so I was just going to call you out on it because I'm contrarian. But yeah, I love it. I think it's brilliant, and it's something that you will see on our shelves off and on. It's not something we've carried all the time to this point, but hey, if everybody comes out at the end of the night and says, "You know what my favorite thing was? It was the Naughty Hildegard," I think we might actually see that. So let's move on to beer 2 here as I pour it all over my jeans because I apparently can't pour. And that is the Original Gravity Haze.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I expected it to be hazier.
A lot of the haze sits at the bottom of the can, so if you give it a little
Let's give it a little bit of a
swirl,
spin and see what I get out of this guy.
it might still even be more at the bottom than mine.
No, it's still crystal clear, but that's okay. There are more than enough hazy IPAs. Thank you so much. West Coast is still best coast, so I'm totally okay with my clear IPAs.
Yeah, I mean, hazy has also been bastardized to mean turbid and opaque lately.
Sure.
So
It absolutely has.
chunky. So
I would also say that that's probably now, if you ask most people, the consensus style.
yeah,
I would actually say that like what would be for a lot of people an old school hazy IPA, I'd call like a no coast IPA, kind of like 88's Wave Pool, that has a little of that hazy and a little bit of that West Coast.
Yeah, that's actually kind of like my ultimate style of IPA right now.
Me too.
They're rarely well done too.
Yeah, there aren't that many of them. And again, this is something I've talked about, and this is actually a tasting I've been trying to put together, is how much IPA recipes drift over time. Like you talked about Naughty Hildegard and their struggles to get Mosaic early on. When 88 launched, at least down here, they had Wave Pool, Ring Pop, and Night Gallery. And of the three, I thought Wave Pool by miles was their worst IPA. By absolute light years was the worst IPA. They've tinkered with the recipe in kind of that intervening 18 months. It's now my favorite beer they make. Better than any of the last well, okay. I adore dial-up IPA, but I get like 3 flats of dial-up a year, so I can't really, say that. Of the ones I actually reasonably get in actual volume, easily Wave Pool, and it's just because the beer has changed. That's something I want to do, but I need to find 4 IPAs that the brewer is actually willing to talk about how they changed the recipe on camera, which a lot of brewers aren't.
Yeah, no, you're not gonna pull those secrets from them.
Depends on the brewer, but yeah, it's sometimes a challenge.
Depends how many of their own beers they have too beforehand,
That never hurts. All right, so Original Gravity Haze, the one that I'm the least familiar with. Walk us through this one.
Yeah, so this is Driftwood, who typically makes West Coast styles. It's their attempt at making a little bit of that mid-coast or no-coast IPA, almost in New England, I'd say. They do throw the kind of traditional method as of late of making it hazy on its head by actually using apple pectin to create viscosity, which is, I don't think, really ever seen. They do use flaked oats and flaked wheat as well, which is pretty standard. Flaked oats are kind of like one of the main ways that breweries get that haziness.
Can I loop you back there just for a sec? Because we've been doing these like weekly for a year and change now. It's actually the first time somebody's brought up apple pectin. Do you want to walk me through like how it's used, why it's used, and why it's apparently not that common anymore?
Yeah, so it's not used in pre-fermentation. It's added post-fermentation. and it adds a little bit of perfume. You know, kind of like a little bit of green apple, but I think it is actually specifically green apple pectin, and that's why the can is just green can color. But yeah, it's basically to boost the viscosity, and to add a little bit of haziness, a little opacity to the beer. I honestly don't know a ton about it. It's kind of a Frankenstein of a beer, adding flaked out raw wheat and apple pectin to like the super hoppy beer.
I mean,
but
good.
Yeah,
I love that. I mean, please give me novelty, give me interesting things. Please, for the love of God, don't give me another just Alberta brewed hazy IPA with a really cutesy name and absolutely no like history or interest or anything behind it. There are way too many breweries doing exactly that. I'm not going to name any names because I'm only on beer 2, but you know who you are.
Yeah, I mean, as far as kind of the nitty gritty details of OG Haze, it's a 7 hop beer as well, which is pretty cool. It's got a whole bunch of kind of these nouveau fancy trendy hops like Eldorado, Idaho 7, Vic Secret, Citra. So it's pretty sexy beer overall. I think anybody who likes kind of those gimmicky local, throw all the hops in the world at it, throw all the cloudiness, they'll like this for sure. This is well crafted, and I think it's super delicious. So
my favorite guest in ages, just because of how cynical you are about beer. It's fantastic. Yeah. It comes through. I like it. No, let's dig more into that.
I mean, if you know, I've worked in this industry for like 10 years, and you know, I've worked in 2 retail stores, and I've been a rep for a while. I've seen tens of thousands of beers, so there's a lot of cynicism below the surface here.
Yeah, it comes through. The second you said I've worked retail, it's like, yep,
I
get it.
Wait, retail. Cynic, check. Nihilistic, check, you know?
Yep. Eric asks, is the pectin a historical ingredient?
I don't believe so. I don't really know of any other examples of specific green apple pectin. I'd have to do a little more research on that, just because it is kind of an oddball thing. But yeah, I don't think it's a historical thing. I think it's Driftwood not wanting to make a super chunky beer, just because that can get to be problematic with a lot of equipment and filtration systems, and especially when you own your own canning line and you're kind of liable for it, whereas a lot of breweries aren't. It's probably more so just kind of a backdoor method of achieving the same thing, if I had to guess.
I was actually going to say it's a neat trick, because I'm hearing people saying, oh, it's a patio beer, it's super crushable, and I went and looked at the alcohol. It's like, this thing's 7%, and it does not show it.
Like
no, it tastes like it's a 5.5 like everyday crusher, and I don't know if that's the apple pectin or just really good, careful brewing overall, but like this wears its alcohol really well.
Oh yeah, you don't notice it at all. It's a danger for sure. This is a beer that'll sneak up on you.
And Chris just chimes in with exactly the same comment we're talking about now. And again, they're seeing it a few seconds after we are. So Sean likes it as well. Feels like if it had a different name, it'd be targeting a different category. I mean, it's an IPA with green apple pectin and oats and wheat and all sorts. I mean, what's its category? Like experimental hoppy strong ale? That just makes me think of like Arrogant Bastard, which just makes me feel sad and like I'm dying inside. Sorry, I don't like, I'll be very clear. I don't like Stone Arrogant Bastard. It's nothing really to do with the beer so much, but like you can buy it in any 7-Eleven gas station in like the lower 48, and it's never fresh, and it's always just like fine. It's like barley wine light or IPA, but worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I see like,
it's kind of like a brewer threw all of their scrap malts and scrap hops and made it a 7% beer.
Yeah.
And called it an American strong ale.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about, like, you know, if we were going to recategorize this, you might go American strong ale just because it's so different, but American strong ale does not conjure up desperately positive feelings in me overall.
No. It's kind of like barley wine for me too. Like I love a good barley wine, but like man, I am never gonna reach for one. Like
No.
maybe, yeah.
Nigel, who's like the beer guy here, huge barley wine fan. We actually just finished pouring a keg of the 2017 Brewster's Blue Monk barley wine, which I actually think is an underrated beer.
Wow.
For anyone who needed 2 liters of Blue Monk barley wine, you know, we had that on tap for you.
Oh my god.
I like barley wine, but it's not something I'll ever buy because for the same alcohol, I'd rather have like an Imperial Stout or like a Belgian Quad. And when it comes right down to it, I don't really want a 9% beer that often.
And you know what? If I wanted the barley one, I would want that much.
Yeah.
And most of them still come in bombers, so that's the whole problem there.
And you can't really do bottle shares with COVID, so you're just kind of stuck with it.
You can do them this way, but then you just all have to drink your own bomber.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a problem until tomorrow.
Yeah. When your liver is dead.
Yes.
Yeah, you like this beer? I really enjoy it.
I do too. Yep, this was actually the beer I hadn't had on the table. I mean, I know Raised by Wolves, like Fat Tug was the one I drove out for, but Raised by Wolves, I'm so glad this is year round now. I'm also so glad that you told me that we can just get 4-packs of this. We are definitely going to be doing 4-packs of this like next week immediately because I adore this beer and you're all about to find out why. No, this is just my jam. I hope it holds up because in my head it holds up. But I literally haven't had this since it was still in bombers, so...
It's been a couple years.
Yeah. All right, well, that's as good a segue as I'm capable of doing, so let's dig into it. Driftwood Raised by Wolves. Formerly packaged as Wild IPA, now just Raised by Wolves IPA, but I believe you said still a Wild IPA in terms of ingredients?
Yeah, I mean, just for the masses, I think that's a bit of a confusing term. It is still fermented with Saccharomyces toi. Yeah, so a little wild, kind of lends a little bit of tropical fruit and kind of a little bit of funkiness, but not really sourness per se. So
it's not like open-topped fooders. It's just like a bit of a wild yeast blend sort of thing.
Yeah. So it was a wild yeast. They used to blend it with just their traditional brewer's yeast, but I believe it is just 100% Sac Trois now, which typically gives very tropical mango, papaya, passion fruit flavors. And
so it's kind of like the modern fad of everything being... It's actually not been this bad this year, but like last summer where everyone and their mom did a Queek IPA. It's kind of like the proto Queek IPA.
Yeah. Yeah. Queek is kind of... It's like every year there's like 3 or 4 trends that just disappear the next year. Like for a while there, black lagers. Everybody was making a black lager. And
remember that 2 months where Brute IPA was cool?
Were they even cool though?
I mean, I think the best beer, okay, once they're actually up and running, because I will defend their trial batch IPA to the death. Best beer Cooley Brew here in town when they were still open. Best thing they ever did. They did an absolutely fantastic brewed IPA. And if that style had stuck around, I think they would have gotten more press for it. But yeah, I thought that was actually the best thing they ever did.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't even heard of Cooley in a year or two.
Well, they're not brewing anymore. It's sitting kind of empty. I think the tap room, barring COVID, the tap room is still open. But yeah, the brewery is shuttered.
I drove by about a month or two ago there, and there was a for sale sign. I think they're asking quite a hefty price, if I recall.
It's a big-ass facility. They do need to charge something for it.
Yeah. Well, it's a contract facility too, right?
Yeah. Or at least they used it for that, certainly. It's big enough it definitely needs to be honest. Eric asks, does wild mean every batch is different?
No. I mean, technically every batch of beer is going to be a little bit different. Slight varieties just in...
Oh my god.
Oh, do we have a dog?
Yeah, my dog is
This is a very dog-friendly channel. Can we see the dog?
We need the dog.
Hey.
We do need the dog.
Come here. Come here, you maniac.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go. Who's this?
This is Ziggy.
Hi, Ziggy.
Hi, Ziggy.
He's the crazy boy.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a quality dog right there.
No, not every batch is different. I I mean, within small margins. What it means basically is that it's a yeast that is not traditionally a brewer's yeast, and it's yeast that kind of ferments a little atypically. The most commonly seen wild beers are beers that have lactobacillus added, so kettle sours, or beers with Brettanomyces. Saccharomyces is just another type of wild yeast strain. But it's kind of a yes and no answer, because yes, every batch is a tiny bit different based on stuff like humidity and temperature in the brew house. But yeah.
Sorry, we've got a couple of really good questions. Julie, I'm not sure exactly what your question's referencing just because it's been a minute. What was the story behind that? Investors wanted their money out. I can't comment on Cooley, not because I don't know, but I know more than I'm allowed to say, and I can't remember after 2.5 beers exactly what I am and am not allowed to say, so I'm just going to say nothing.
That's good.
Chris, however, asks, we were talking about all these new hops that breweries are jumping on. How do these new hops get created? Do new farms try out different growing techniques? Do new farms pop up? And he's imagining like a conference where different booths have different hops, where brewers are just walking around and smelling hops and getting goodie bags and all that sort of thing. That last thing isn't all that different from the truth, but
Nope.
yeah. Why don't you fill us in a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's actually the perfect question for Raised by Wolves, because Raised by Wolves is a single hop beer. It's actually only hopped with a hop called Euconaut, which some people might know better as Equinox. They got a bit of a cease and desist a couple years ago from a brewery called Equinox Brewhouse in the U.S.
Yeah.
But prior to that, Equinox was actually just a numbered hop. It was like HB233 or something, which is basically how hop farms and companies, they create these new strains of hops. And typically before they're given like a big commercial grow, they just get a name, or a number as a name, sorry. So they'll be like C721, and that became like Melon Ball hop or something.
Yeah.
And there's only a few.
I remember there was the one that had that really distinct like honeydew melon
Yeah.
hop. I had it when it was still like the hop number at Minneapolis Town Hall Brewery. I was having the Masala Mama IPA, which is a fantastic IPA. And actually my beer glasses at home, the ones I really like, the ones my wife's not allowed to wash, those are Minneapolis Town Hall beer glasses. She has a really bad habit of breaking my beer glasses. Nothing else. Our plates? No, I break all the damn plates. I break all the damn coffee mugs. My beer glasses? Oh no, those are just death. But no, I remember like having this beer, and it was the first time I'd heard of like these, experimental numbered hops, and this is probably 10, 12 years ago now.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, like I was so confused, like, oh, well, this isn't a named hop, it's just a number. It's like, yeah, we got exactly 5 pounds. We made 1 beer from it.
Yeah,
and
totally.
It's never going to be canned, but this is what we're doing.
And for a long time, breweries like Sierra Nevada, like their experimental brew house, they had like contracts with hop farms where they would be the ones that would be like the only people to get this hop, like, and some of these hops work out. Like even Equinox, pretty obscure, but like, some have become like Citra or El Dorado or Vic's Secret. Some went from a number to something like Sriracha Haze, which hasn't been used in like 8 years because it tastes like cat piss. Like
I like Sriracha Ace, but
I
fine.
did too, but a lot of
it
people
definitely tastes like the worst parts of Sauvignon Blanc, but I also kind of like it for that.
But yeah, that's kind of the long-winded answer in that, like, basically hop farms kind of do a little, GMOing to their hop strains, come up with something that tastes like whatever, give it a number name, and then if it's good enough, it gets a name that might or might not stick.
Craig's picking up some cool earthiness in the finish. That's just good West Coast IPA. It should always be like earthy and spicy at the finish because you're getting that proper, appropriate bitterness. And it's not chunky. Now, again, we did the whole New England Pale Ale tasting like 3 weeks ago. We all talked about how much we like them. I do like New England Pales, but I'm West Coast first and foremost and always.
I'm West Coast too, man. I can have one New England and then I'll move on to something else. I can go West Coast all day.
Yeah, I would have
I
said
say all
that.
day, but
I would have said that like a year ago, but after doing these every week for like a year and change, there are some really spectacular New England IPAs and New England Pales that, okay, West Coast, Best Coast, sure, but there's really some exceptional brewing that I can't really look down my nose at all.
oh, totally.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm gonna get through this. I'm just gonna let Patrick talk. It'll be great.
If you need to take a break or something, we'll rejoin here in 5 or something.
No, we're good. I peed before.
I know these are all 6.5 to 7%. Like, it's a bit of a hefty night.
Oh yeah, and Julie brings up the Brooklyn Strachey, which that would be the reference Strachey beer for a lot of people.
I don't know if I ever had another one, really.
I know I did because McKellar worked with Strachey.
McKellar did a single hop.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool. And Anchorage, one of their beers was really Strachey focused as well, I feel like.
Yeah. As I've gotten a little bit older, I've kind of lost my encyclopedic knowledge of beers I had 12 years ago.
Yep, me too.
But Brooklyn Strachey is kind of the benchmark for that hop variety. And yeah, you really do not see Strachey anymore ever. So, or Nelson Sauvin even, and that's I even like Nelson.
Yeah, Nelson I think is the better of the two, really. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they both kind of went the way of the Dodo as of late, eh?
Yeah, which is a shame, and I don't know if that's just availability or what it is, but yeah, it's a shame those beers are... Although I swear I saw Establishment had a Nelson Sauvin hopped sour not too long ago. I want to say about 3-4 months ago they had a Nelson Sauvin hopped sour that I think actually Eric down in the comments did the art for the label. So
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I think Raised by Wolves is, I think it's a stunning beer. It's one of my go-tos for sure. Like, as somebody who sells Fat Tug, I think Driftwood wants me to say Fat Tug, but Raised by Wolves is probably one of my favorite beers that I sell. So, yeah, Naughty Hildegard's up there too, though. So.
It is, yeah. I would always be Raised by Wolves just because I'm just hopeless with IPAs. I'm open about that. But yeah, that's just, that fits me to a T. Okay, let's quickly talk about upcoming attractions. Now, I did kind of spoil this a little bit, but Wednesday next week, I was just at Annex yesterday. And Annex, please don't blacklist me for undercutting your pricing because I kind of am a bit here. They are doing, for their 4th anniversary, they're doing what they call a People's History of Annex Brewing. So they opened this big poll on their website, on their Twitter and Instagram accounts, and basically said, look, we've made a lot of beers over the years. What's your favorite beer over the last entire 4 years of Annex? And they just did a completely open poll of everything they've ever made. And then they rebrewed the top 4 beers that weren't already being made. They weren't just going to rebrew Force Majeure. But of the beers that have kind of come and gone, the one-offs, they said, what are your favorites? And they rebrewed the top 4 from that. So they're calling it the Refreshment Referendum. On the shelf, they're going to be $20.95 plus tax plus deposit. Because it's part of our beer tasting, we're doing it for $20 all in. Annex, please don't hate me. With the 4 beers that won are their Mackinac Peach Sour, their Rorschach Milk Chocolate Stout, the King's English, which is a black tea pale ale, and the one I can never remember, Terrestrial Magnetism, which is their wild, conically hopped New England IPA. So that is Wednesday next week. You can also, if you don't want to do the beer tasting, you can also buy these off the shelf. They'll be $21. But just as a one-off special thing, we're doing them for $18.67 plus tax and deposit. So that's going to be really fun. This Friday, we are doing our Rosé Highlander tasting. There can be only one. These are 4 of my absolute favorite rosés in the store. We are going to kind of pick a winner here. The impetus for this was the Love Rosé by Brock Cellars, which is not a wine I like every year, but the new one absolutely rules. We're going to do that against the Lights, which is my personal, die-hard, my always go-to rosé in the store, because it's just a beautiful German Pinot Noir rosé, bone dry. Absolutely love it. It's a personal thing. Mein Prosa, one of our top 4 wines of 2020. Easily our best-selling rosé. That has to be in there. And then we're throwing Domaine Relais, just because there is no Jura wine at like $20 anymore. And this one is, and it's delicious, and it doesn't sell that quickly. And I needed a 4th one for the rosé tasting. So kind of the really exciting new challenger, my personal favorite, our bestseller, and the dark horse. Tickets to this are $85 all in, and that is this Friday, so 48 hours from tonight. Thank you for bearing with me, Patrick. We are on to, you know, the cornerstone here. We're on to Fat Tug. Yep. Just reading the comments here.
Nice sound effect.
You know, I've done a lot of beer tastings in my role with this company over the last couple of years, and invariably there is always a joke about Fat Tug.
Seems very puerile, really.
There just always is. You know, I'd be working Calgary Beer Fest, and like some guy would come up, oh, I'll grab a Fat Tug. I'm like, oh god, man, like I've only heard that 95 million times today.
Oh, did you ever do deliveries in retail liquor and you're like taking the thing into the restaurant? It's like, oh hey, you can put that in my car.
Oh yeah.
Oh god, fucking kill me if I ever have to do that joke again.
Oh my god, I remember the first time I heard that joke.
Yeah, your very first day delivering liquor, and then you heard it every single day after that.
Like you said, man, I'm a pure cynic.
You're gonna be a regular guest. You're perfect for this.
I got like a Ben Stern.
Yeah, a little bit very dry sort of sense of humor. I dig it. And for once, I don't look like the cynical one. I think for the very first time in a year and change of doing this one, I'm not the cynical one, which is great.
I'm happy to take the crown.
All right, Fat Tug. I mean, what do you want me to like introduce it with? It's Fat Tug. It's the reference IPA here in Western Canada. Everything that's come out since is based on this. It's the West Coast IPA here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the beer those guys at Establishment and Cabin and Zero Issue et al. This is the beer that they were drinking 7 or 8 years ago when they got into IPAs, and they wanted to create something like this. So
when they were setting up their home breweries, and you know, they'd get up at 8 a.m. bright and early, drink a pot of coffee, and when it was time to like switch to beer during the brew day, it was probably going to be, you know, at that point, bombers of Fat Tug, because that's what one did.
Heck, there was even brewers, I shouldn't say guys, there's even brewers, home brewers who now own breweries, who are making Fat Tug clones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's that famous.
I mean, it doesn't quite have the accolades of stuff like Pliny, but like...
but that's a cult beer, and this is also Western Canada.
As far as Canada goes, this is it.
This is it, yeah. This is, I'd actually say more than... It's not quite Pliny, because Fat Tug was never that rare. It wasn't you had to line up to get it sort of thing. And I know it's not younger or anything, but I'm trying to think what a good Lagunitas IPA, like it's kind of that sort of thing, the reference for the era.
Like Lagunitas Hop Stupid or something, you know, like that beer that was just like a rip your face at the time.
I really liked Hop Stupid, yeah. Or rather, Lagunitas Sucks, which was even better.
Yeah.
I really liked
They made some good beers. Or that Born Yesterday from them, or the Waldo Special or whatever. They made some really good beers.
New Dogtown Pale, which was almost like the Naughty Hildegard, because it had that beautiful coppery color. Then Heineken stepped in and was like, no, we own a part of Molson, so now Molson will represent Lagunitas in Canada. We went from like Harvest Vintage Imports bringing in like 28 Lagunitas SKUs to it being Lagunitas IPA.
Yeah, and it was a year old.
Fuck you, Heineken. There's our first F-bomb of the evening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they completely
39
trashed
minutes
it.
In.
Yep.
Yeah, so the thing about Fat Tug, and for some of the nerds out there who want to compare the two, Fat Tug and Raised by Wolves have the exact same malt bill. So same malts. and they could not be more unlike.
No, they're very different beers. This feels more textural. It feels richer. It feels more viscous. It feels heavier. Whereas this feels racier, a touch more bitter.
Totally.
I get more like
resinous,
tropical
too.
fruit. Yeah, it's definitely more resinous. Like this, I'm a West Coast person from way back. This is even a little bitter for me, and I like that.
Yeah, but yeah, Fat Tug is, take some of that tropicalness out of the Raised by Wolves and turn the resinous and the hoppiness and the bitterness just up to 11, Spinal Tap style. Yeah, so this is kind of old school West Coast hops, those C hops that people used to call them. It's got Cascade, Centennial, Columbus, Citra, and Amarillo. So really old school West Coast hops. My dog is just whining up a storm over
Ziggy's
here.
having a tough night, but he's all right.
Yeah, he hears people out my back door here, and he's just losing it because he...
We've had more comments about Ziggy tonight than I think about the beers, and that's pretty much par for the course when the dog shows up. So,
as a beer nerd with a dog, that makes me happy. He's a maniac.
now you're saying there's a new. You were saying that as big as Driftwood has gotten, and while they have their tanker truck with a tank that looks like a Fat Tug can, they're still doing bombers. Like, they're seasonals, they're one-offs, they're still coming in bombers. And there's a new, like, barrel-aged Imperial Stout coming out from Driftwood that's going to be in the bombers, like a wax dip bomber. Yep. As much as I love peeling wax off of the bottle and picking it out of my carpet later. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so we actually still bring Fat Tug in bombers, as odd as that sounds, and it still sells. It's kind of grandfathered in, and a lot of people who are Fat Tug aficionados still buy it.
I mean, that's cool as hell.
But yeah, some of the crazy stuff, like their double IPA, is probably going to switch to cans. They do a bunch of a couple Belgian beers and some sours, like crazy barrel ferments and foeder aged sours in bombers. And then the one that we're getting, that we just got actually yesterday in Connect, is called Singularity. It's like a 12% bourbon barrel aged Russian Imperial Stout. That is just a behemoth of a beer. A lot of people consider it to be one of the best beers made in Canada, on par with like Péché Mortel from Dieu du Ciel, like that type of quality for Imperial Stouts. And every year they kind of switch up the barrel. So this year it's a bourbon distillery out of Waco, Texas, called Ducaros, that they got these bourbon barrels from. It's supposed to be just fantastic. I'm probably going to pick a bottle up this week if I can find it. So.
Yeah, we're going to bring in a case. We're not doing Imperial Stout on the channel again. That was a terrible disaster. Not as bad as barley wine. Barley wine was just a sloppy mess. I don't remember barley wine.
Oh, man.
Imperial Stout, we were much more careful.
Barley wine, I wouldn't even make it out of there, man.
So got some questions coming in. Does Ziggy like beer? I hope not. I'm sure Patrick is a very responsible dog owner.
He does not like beer.
BC hop tour in the future, like Persephone. That'd be interesting. Eric asks, what's the brightness in Fat Tug from? What's the sweetness from?
That is from Cara Pilsner and Crystal Malt. So crystal malt is kind of what gives beer a lot of like that kind of slight caramel flavor, along with the Cara Pils. Around 98% of the malt bill is just two-row, and then they add a little bit of Pilsner and Crystal, and that's where that sweetness comes from.
I'm surprised that's a surprising amount of color for 2% of the grain bill. And I do know that a little bit goes a long way, but...
Yeah, I mean, even in like a beer like that Singularity, it's probably 95% two-row, and then 5% is stuff like roasted chocolate and some ultra-dark roasted malt. Yep. A little bit goes a long way, so...
Yeah, no, Eric, don't worry. We are definitely bringing in the Driftwood Imperial Stout. The only danger is it sells out before Monday. That's the only reason we wouldn't have it.
I can make sure you guys get some.
We are always fans of allocation, sir. Yeah, we are definitely on team allocation. So yeah, I will definitely take some of that.
I will make it happen. Yeah, it's a beauty. It's one of those beers that definitely don't open on your own if you have any plans of doing anything. And it usually takes about 2 hours to finish in my experience, because it's just thick and heavy and bit of a monster, but yeah, it's a good one.
Cool. Any other? Oh, Craig asks, who's making foeders? Generally, foeders come out of either France or Belgium. They're usually made of European oak. I don't know if I've ever heard of like a North American foeder manufacturer. I think they're all out of Europe. They're ludicrously expensive. Like they're 10 grand a piece or thereabouts, and they cost almost that in shipping them over. Yeah, it's a lot of money, and they're generally European.
Yeah, and if I know as well, I think cooperage, like 99% of cooperage work in the U.S. goes into like whiskey barrels too. So foeders kind of get thrown on the back burner.
Yeah, it's a giant, very delicate, very hard to make, unfamiliar thing where they could just make bourbon barrels for 12 hours a day and make far more money.
Yeah, and anybody with probably 100 hours of training in the trade of cooperage under the belt can make a pretty decent bourbon barrel. So
yeah, there's that too.
Whereas,
Eric asks, is Pilsner malt in an IPA unusual?
No. And that it kind of adds a little bit of that dryness and kind of that, like Pilsner malt in general kind of gives a little bit of herbal earthiness and kind of like grassiness that from a lot of lagers, but it's in almost every IPA probably. I
would agree. Probably American Pils, European Pils is usually reserved for things where you will get more malt character.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Patrick. That was a lot of fun. We will most definitely have you back. That was a laugh and a half.
Awesome. Yeah, we can chat about doing some other brews from our portfolio and maybe some new stuff. And
well, I'll give you a bit of your own shameless plug corner. What else does Ethos bring in that people should be looking for?
We just signed 33 Acres Brewing.
Yeah, we have that on the shelf.
Out of Vancouver.
Yeah, we have Fluffy Clouds and the dry pills on the shelf already.
Yeah. So we got 6 beers from them, really well priced. They're usually around 16 or 17 bucks on the shelf. If anybody hasn't tried those hipster darlings from East Vancouver, it's worth a shot. They make excellent beer. We do a bunch of Belgian stuff like Course and Donk, like some really old school Abbey style stuff. We also represent Steamworks Brewing from Vancouver, Vancouver Island Brewing from Vancouver Island.
You don't say.
Yeah, it's so weird. Hey, you think they'd be maybe from Toronto or something? I honestly have so many breweries I can't even remember the bloody things anymore.
All right, well, stick around because that 33 Acres, that is a really cool brewery, and I'm going to wrap this thing up for everybody. And we'll talk about doing a 33 Acres event because at that price we could actually do 6 for like our usual like $20 all-in sort of deal. Yeah. Look out! And Aaron just broke the lighting rig.
Fuck.
It looks okay.
Working.
It's still working, broadly-ish. He'll just hold it, because, well, things have gone well here.
It's time to wrap this up.
It might just be time to wrap this up. I think Aaron needs to go to bed. Patrick, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Stick around. We will talk about doing a 33 Acres of tasting, because that actually sounds like a lot of fun. I need to clean up Aaron's mess now. So thank you all very much for watching. I'm Kyle with Andrew Hilton. This has been Aaron. That's been his lighting rig. And we will catch all of you for Rosé on Friday or for the refreshment referendum tasting from Annex on Wednesday or sneak preview coming up next Friday. A little bit of a gin tasting, but we'll talk more about that on Friday. Thank you all so much for watching, and good night.
Is the lighting rig okay?